Hi, everyone. Welcome to this breakout session. I'm CNBC contributor Michelle Caruso Cabrera, and in this session, we're going to be talking about how to actually use generative AI in your business or in your enterprise. Thus far, the discussion's been very high level about very important issues when it comes to the state of work, et cetera. But now, if you run a business, what can you do with AI right now? We want to let you know that you can ask questions directly to our panelists. Just put them in the chat in the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to try to get to as many of those as possible. Also, we're going to be showing you a poll. Please take it, okay? Now, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have two guests from Oracle. Greg Pavlik is Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Senior Vice President, in charge of OCI data, which is short for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and AI Services. And Miranda Nash is Oracle Group Vice President, Applications Development and Strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, great to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
So can we start first with the big picture? We're going to get to specifics, but I mean, big picture in terms of for businesses. 6 months ago is really when the hype started. And now that we've had this time to pass, what are you seeing when it comes to business applications, when it comes to generative AI specifically? Greg, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think there's been very rapid adoption in terms of trying to do proof points and POCs. I think companies right now are really looking at then how do we go to the next level? How do we get things into production? The areas where we've seen the most aggressive uptake tend to be around applications. Tech companies obviously live often on the bleeding edge of technology. So starting to take these models and really embed them within the applications to accelerate functionality and improve the efficiency of the human worker who's interfacing with the application or to optimize the business processes. We've started to see that really happen fairly aggressively. And that makes the technology more accessible for the end user as well, because it's available in a package context, it's been vetted, and it's been shown to work reliably. That being said, there are industries that are somewhat surprising in a sense. Take healthcare, which often tends to be quite conservative, heavily regulated areas. But at the same time, there's so much overhead today in healthcare. You go and visit a doctor, you see the physician assistant, you see the doctors themselves typing away, a large portion of the time that they're in a clinical setting. Those are all optimization opportunities where this generative AI can really come to the table and help quite a bit.
So Miranda, it sounds like what Greg's saying is maybe 6 months ago, there was just a lot of hype, but now there's actual generative AI processes being put into place in various businesses in a way that we hadn't seen before.
Absolutely. For example, within our own, Oracle Fusion applications, we've got 50 examples coming live to production in the next months, and customers are very eager to adopt. And we've seen really a tremendous shift in the last 6 months.
Okay. Greg, what are some of the concerns that you're hearing from your customers as they think about AI and particularly generative AI?
Yeah, I think the newness presents some real challenges on multiple dimensions. So one is, just even putting aside the maturity of the tech, people are trying to really understand, how does it impact the business? How's it going to affect my workforce? Is this something that's going to accelerate productivity? Is it going to be something that's going to be disruptive? And I think some of that is warranted, although we're so early in this process. Generally, we try to encourage people to pick, clear business problems, really focus on those, and then see what kind of outcomes you get, right? So it builds confidence and it builds understanding. There is certainly a gap in skill sets and experience. Just like earlier stages of machine learning, we had to develop kind of an industry of data scientists. People are really now on the early stages of becoming specialists in how to apply generative AI, really understanding the limitations. Where does it excel? How to optimize the prompts or the inputs that go into the model to get the best responses. And then the other areas are probably pretty predictable. We definitely see people concerned about cost. These models tend to be very large. They run on a lot of GPUs. So people are asking questions about how do I get the most efficiencies, and how do I get the most effectiveness, given the cost structure. And that's one area where really understanding price performance around the infrastructure that runs the models is critical. And then the last thing people really are spending time on is the general problem of security and data privacy. Early on, when some of these models became available as services, part of the exchange in using them was to kind of give up your data. And for real businesses, sensitive industries, governments, that's absolutely unacceptable. So we're seeing a lot of scrutiny around data privacy, data integrity and protection, and security overall. But these are also all normal. These are sort of the normal questions that you ask when new technologies emerge. And I don't see anything here that really represents a blocker. It's just an opportunity really to partner with our customers and help them to understand how to use the technology today effectively.
Got it. Miranda, how does it differ from, I think a lot of people who are tuning in will have installed one of these applications at home, and wow, it makes the internet really easy to search, much faster. But how does the context differ for an enterprise or business?
Yeah, there are two big things that are different in an enterprise setting. So one is these models need to have context. And I like to think of it kind of like if you hire a new college grad, fresh off, out of school into your company, they can write essays, they can communicate clearly in English, but they don't have the context of your business, certainly, maybe not even your industry. They certainly don't know your lingo, your acronyms, how the implicit knowledge that really makes things work. So it's the context that's so important to usage in an enterprise setting. And then also guardrails. So, we've heard that these models can hallucinate, and that's not acceptable in an enterprise setting. And then also, ensuring it's not just a one-time giving an answer one time to one customer, but having that operate at scale for thousands of customers. That requires guardrails as well. So those are the two big differences I see.
And how do you see them being brought to life actually in a workplace when they're being installed? Are they going to replace humans, or are they augmenting humans?
We absolutely see this as augmenting humans. This is not replacing. And there's a lot of studies, and my own anecdotal evidence reinforces this too, that the models support and augment humans and do that more on folks who are sort of on the lower end of the performance curve, if you will. So there's an equalizing effect, which helps to bring up the performance of every individual, the productivity and performance of every individual in your company.
I've heard it described as working smarter, not harder, eliminating tediousness.
Exactly. And in that way, it's similar to other waves of technology that we've seen before, where there can be these fears about, what will this mean for human jobs? Absolutely, what we see so far and what we've seen in the past with past waves of technology is that jobs will change, new skills will emerge, new opportunities emerge. I mean, there's prompt engineering now, which didn't exist, say, a year ago, even as a concept. And so these new opportunities will emerge and things will change over time.
Greg, now let's get to specifics. What specific use cases are you seeing? Are there some areas where it's catching on faster than other areas?
Yeah. So real quick, let me also comment on one point that Miranda raised there. If you look at the world after the internet and just ask yourself, are there more or less jobs because of the internet? It's a very simple answer, right? There's new industries. There's whole geometric progression of technology. I think we're going to see something very similar with generative AI. So the question is not so much are jobs going to go away. I think the question is how are all these new jobs going to unfold, and what kind of radical impacts are they going to have on business in the large and on the economy in the large. But I think in the aggregate, these are really going to be positive. As far as use cases where people are being successful today, they tend to be pretty straightforward. So we're seeing a lot of areas where people are using generative AI to reduce complexity. So let's say you have a large insurance policy or a large contract, and you're trying to quickly make sense of it and answer specific questions about what's covered within the policy, right? You can use the generative AI to do those kinds of either interactive extraction of information or summarizations that tend to be very efficient and let you get to kind of a bottom line, really reducing the complexity and then enabling people to move forward with decisions. We're definitely seeing a lot of augmented AI that is relying on what we call semantic or similarity match type searching, where people are able to go to a knowledge corpus and apply that data to the work that the generative AI does. So, for example, if I'm a customer support, or somebody dealing with company policy, and there's a bunch of documents that describe the policies or the support apparatus, the generative AI models can use those. They can mine them for information to then create responses to customer questions. We call that retrieval augmented generation. That's become increasingly almost the majority of the cases that we're seeing that people are trying to move forward with. Augmented chatbots. We're definitely seeing areas where people are using the models just to create new content. So, for example, product marketing, an area where people will ask the model to kind of generate pitches or generate product descriptions. Doesn't mean the model, every time you use the model, it may come up with something different, and maybe one out of 20 times there's something that's appealing. But in the old world of marketing, it might have required a team of humans to build those 20 different pitches over the course of weeks. Now you can generate it over the course of minutes and then have real people evaluate the effectiveness of the pitches. So it's pretty varied.
We have a question from Stacy Chan, who says, Greg, you mentioned healthcare as an adapter of generative AI. Can you cite specific examples or effective strategies you've seen with real ROI in terms of customer acquisition? She's asking specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we're really focused on in the healthcare space, and so we've been playing a lot of work on both the science and the customer delivery on this, is really reducing administrative burden for physicians. And so simple things like you imagine you're in a hospital, you have a hospital stay. You have doctors that come and visit you. You have nurses that check up on you. You have physician assistants. All that's captured, right? And it needs to be turned into things like discharge summaries. In the past, that was a human exercise. Now we can use the generative AI model to really capture all that data and then turn it into human understandable reports. Updating insurance companies. You have somebody in for treatment. You need to send a letter back to document the treatment to insurance company. Even instructions for follow-on care. A lot of these can be automated. We always expect that there's a human in the loop, that there's still a professional involved and helping to both audit and guide the models. But at the end of the day, we're looking to really reduce the administrative burden for healthcare providers significantly, 80-90%, and then allow them to spend more time with their patients.
That would be fantastic. We have another question from Matt Poteet asking, and I think this is for you, Miranda, but either one of you can answer. I'm an IT director for a public pre-K through 12 school system, 15,000 students, 2,000 staff. I'm interested in hearing ways that we can leverage AI with our students and or staff to support teaching and learning. So he doesn't run a business, but he certainly runs a very large enterprise. What can he think about here?
Mm-hmm. Well, productivity enhancement for your staff is kind of bread and butter, and there are lots of opportunities for that, whether that is in preparing materials, back office operations, other operational scheduling, those kinds of things. And then in the actual teaching realm, I think, many of us have seen how education and teaching has adapted so quickly to the existence of these models. And it becomes a tool in the best circumstances, a tool for students, a tool for teachers. And I think actually education serves as a great example to the other kinds of businesses where jobs have shifted and adapted radically, not gone away by any means.
How does an enterprise, Miranda, though, know it's or become generative AI ready?
Well, first is understanding your goals, right? And getting alignment in the business. For many of our customers, again, that centers on productivity enhancement across many different kinds of roles and parts of the business. For some companies, that can mean assembling a team of data scientists and machine learning engineers, but that's also not necessary to get started. So if you can bring your enterprise context together in largely one place through, for example, enterprise applications, you can start to use AI embedded within the flow of work, embedded within the applications you already have. For example, this is how we're bringing to market AI and Fusion applications from Oracle. And this really requires no expertise on the side of the company. You can have assisted authoring, summarization, retrieval, a knowledge retrieval, like Greg mentioned, and that can come out of the box. So that's a really good way to dip your toe in the water and get started.
We have the poll results. I want to read them to you. Breaking news. How do you most foresee your company leveraging generative AI capabilities was the question. 27.3% said embedded in existing solutions. 45.5% said adding point solutions to our existing technologies. 18% said in-house, and nearly 7% said other. 2.3% said not at all. 45.5% said adding point solutions to our existing technology. So that's the biggest area where people say that they're going to be using generative AI. Greg, if I could follow up to what I asked Miranda, as a company or an enterprise starts to adopt generative AI, what should they be thinking about? She seemed to say, build a good base case or a reason for starting it. How do you decide that? Should it be simple? Should it be a hard question?
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily a simple or hard question as much as it's a valuable question, or it's a valuable problem to address. And if you think about any organization, you don't have to be that large. The majority of the work that gets done is by people doing tasks. And, when it comes to businesses, enterprises, oftentimes the majority of those tasks are what we call knowledge work. And that can be as simple as writing emails, creating proposals, to doing more sophisticated kinds of planning. And I think there are opportunities in almost every single business process of that type for optimization and specifically for applying the technologies. So I always suggest that people look at areas where, the threshold to success maybe not terribly high in terms of the overall complexity, but really high value, because then you can show the impact directly within a specific swim lane of the business. And immediately people see, light bulbs go off and they start looking around. How do I do similar things? How do I get similar outcomes in other areas of the business? So I'm always suggesting, find something that's not just flashy, but it actually is meaningful. And when you find that meaningful thing, and then you get a chance to, show that you've reduced the amount of effort that goes into it by 70, 80, 90%, it really gets people excited. And then they tend to look immediately turning around and looking for ways to do, similar optimizations in the business.
We have one more question, last question, because we're running out of time. Either one of you can answer this. Almaz Crow asks, Greg and Miranda, how are companies ensuring the models they use have been created with discrimination-free data? How do you collect that data, in other words?
That's a great question. It's one of the challenges in this space, and because there's so much data required to create these models. So we've worked, on providing models in a managed context where we do two things. We partner with companies and creators of the foundation models who part and parcel of their business the business model themselves is to ensure that the models are well behaved and that the data sets are well understood that go into them. And then we also apply filters. So we're always looking to find ways as we enable this technology for customers to make sure that we're enabling it safely. So it's, part of it is the science, and then part of it is at the base of creating the models, and then part of it is the way that we provision them into the application context or, directly into business processes.
Part of making sure an organization is ready to go for generative AI. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.